unpacking today's headlines. This is Souls and Liberty in Depth.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to In Depth, the production of Souls and Liberty, brought to you in partnership with MyPillow.com. Today, a pretty darn important topic: just how close the morally depraved, atheistic communists are to achieving success, despite the election results. Don't pay attention to that. And they're much closer than you think because of one thing, which is what we're focusing on today: the RINOs. And not just in D.C., but more specifically, and perhaps even dangerously, in red states. We're going to focus on the war in the GOP because it is massively important. If just a couple of these states were to flip from red to blue, it'd be lights out. Politics is not so much a salvation, of course, for the nation. I think, Jesus Christ is salvation of the world and every individual and every stage in between. But politics can usher in its doom, a nation's doom, if not paid attention to. Long ago, under the corrupt Nancy Pelosi and the rest of her communist cabal, the Dems were pretty successful in, launching, jettisoning anyone. They purged their ranks of anyone, any lawmaker that stepped out of line in any way. You got on that party line or you got off the train. Because of that, there is now near total unanimity among them on their agenda, even if there is here now and then, some sort of disagreement on how to achieve it and where to put the emphasis, especially in the cold, harsh reality of the presidential election. They're going through their autopsies and their carnage review and all of that. Don't worry, they'll come out just as strong as they were, all put together again. They always do. However, for a variety of reasons, the GOP leadership, both nationally and in many states, those guys, those women decided not to purge their ranks sufficiently to combat the communist aggression nationally. For example, it's a safe bet that every single one of Trump's nominees will be opposed by Senate Democrats across the board unanimously, or perhaps just an occasional one here or there not voting for them. The reason for the opposition is simple. They don't want the swamp drained. They want the deep state to remain in power. It's the deep state that has been the means by which the republic has been undermined by those Marxist influences for decades now, promoted by the likes of Nancy Pelosi and the whole crowd. And they've all gotten much more Marxist as the time has gone by. On the other side, the GOP, too many Republicans, they just kind of go along with that. They play ball, really for a bunch of different reasons. But in the end, it all boils down to their own individual personal gain, whether that's philosophical or financial, and even in some cases, agenda-driven. Their own lust for power greases the skids for the commies, who they are in total lockstep, waiting and hoping that just enough, you don't need all the Republicans, you need just enough of them to jump the fence and side with them, the Marxists, and then undo the cause of patriotism. But here's something many, many patriots don't really have any idea about. What's playing out in the spotlight in D.C.? Well, that's happening in various red states around the nation. And it's pretty unnerving when you consider the potential consequences. Take a look at this post on X from Donald Trump Jr. Take a read here. It's unbelievable what is happening in Texas right now. There's a group of so-called Republicans cutting a deal with liberal Democrats to elect a speaker instead of uniting behind the Republican nominee, David Cook, Texas, at David Cook, Texas. Unbelievable. Republicans have a mandate. Yet, did you notice there? Texas, deep red Texas. Don Jr. talking about Texas and the RINOs. Texas, where Trump won by 15 points and GOP Senator Ted Cruz won by almost 10 re-election. But it's not all as it appears in the Lone Star State, the Republic of Texas, the only state to have at one time been its own country. Joining me now to talk about the threat to Texas's red status on the state level is Claver Kamau. He's a longtime fighter in conservative politics here in Texas who knows a lot about all of this. And we're blessed to have him, of course, as our Souls and Liberty fellow contributor as well. So, Claver, thank you for joining us. What do you think prompted that tweet? And remember, you're talking to an audience, there's obviously people in Texas, but there's 49 other states who don't know any of these names or anything else because it's local here to Texas. And heck, probably most Texans probably don't even know most of these names and stuff. So What is going on that here in the Austin state capitol and the state legislature that rose to the level of Don Trump Jr. having to condemn it? What's going on?
Same manure, different session. That's what's going on.
Okay.
Donald Trump Jr., DTJ versus DJT, is way behind the times. This is this kind of rhino activity in Texas is traditional. It's tradition. We've been fighting this kind of stuff. My first speakers fight was 2009, 2011. Now, a lot of people don't realize the Texas legislature only meets every other year on the odd years, and it only meets for 140 days. The first 30, they don't do anything. But the first order of business is the election of Speaker of the House. Now, Don Jr. is talking about this year's speaker's race, in which 26 Republicans stormed out of the caucus. They are mandated by the rules of the Texas GOP that they must caucus by themselves as a conference, and they must elect a nominee within the conference that will then go on the floor on the opening day of session in 2025, January 10th, I believe it's this year. And they're all supposed to, by the Texas GOP rules, vote for the GOP nominee. Now, these other 26.
Let me interrupt you a second, just because for the audience here, Claver. What is the size? You're talking about just the House. Obviously, the Speaker of the House is the question, the sort of flashpoint of all this. How many representatives here in Texas are there in the Texas State House?
Okay, so the book of Psalms, there's 150 Psalms, and there's 150 state representatives.
Okay,
Book of Proverbs
it's a great way to remember it.
Book of Proverbs has 31 chapters. There's 31 senators.
Look at that.
So literally the government of Texas, the legislature of Texas, points to the Lord Jesus Christ, the Word of God.
Just right? Legislators don't.
Yeah. It's 140 days of absolute hedonism, and I'll send you some old videos and links of the kind of stuff that goes on during the Texas legislature every other year.
I bet.
I want to take you back.
Let me ask you, what's the breakdown? You got 150. What's the breakdown of Democrats
I have to recount
and Republicans?
it right now. I have to recount it right now. I think it's about. I think the Republicans have 95 seats at the moment. But I want it in the House, and I think they have 20 or 21 in the Senate right now. I have to go back and count. I'm a little bit behind on the election.
I mean, that's a pretty healthy majority. It's about a 30 seat margin roughly in the House. So it's a 20% difference there. It's pretty good.
But to get to your point, and to get to Donald Trump Jr.'s tweet, I'm going to take you back to the first fight that I was a part of for the Texas Speaker of the House, to show to you how long this has been going on. In 2009 session, there were 76 Republicans and 74 Democrats elected to the House, sworn into the House of Representatives for the 2009 session. A man by the name of Joe Strauss from San Antonio, owns the racetrack there in San Antonio. He and 11 Republicans peeled off from the Republican conference, cut a deal with the Democrats. Joe Strauss was elected Speaker of the House with 11 Republicans and 74 Democrats. Okay, or 60, whatever it was. Some Democrats, but it was he won the majority, and from that election became the longest serving Speaker in Texas House history.
What did he trade away to the Democrats? What did they get out of that? Obviously, they got something. 1/3
of the committee seats, chairmanships. There are some committees in Texas under the Pink Dome where the chair and the vice chair of the committee are Democrat.
Wow.
That happened in 2011. Remember, 2010 was the Tea Party election.
Sure.
And we came out, the Republicans came out with a supermajority, over 100 seats.
Right. Which they're close to now.
Yeah. They reelected Joe Strauss, although the convention, the platform, and all grassroots was against Joe Strauss. They reelected him anyway. And that's a story in itself.
Sure.
And so 1/3 of the committee chairs are Democrats to this day. 1/3 of the committee chairs are Democrat. The party platform says stop doing that.
Yes.
So Strauss has done it. Then Bonin did it, his right-hand man. Then Dave Phelan did it from my hometown of Beaumont. And so that's what this fight is all about. The tradition of bipartisan election of a speaker and bipartisan leadership of the committees. That's what they're doing. It's a sellout. It's a total sellout.
Let me ask you, just let's put the shoe on the other foot. Do you think that, if for some reason the Democrats had the 100 seats and the Republicans had the 50, rounding them up, that the Democrats be cutting these sort of deals?
No. And they threaten it all the time. They said, okay, now, one of these days we're going to be in power. No, you're not.
Yeah.
All right. As you pointed out rightly, Trump won Texas by 15. He doubled his margin of victory from 2016.
Right.
And they're always pushing the panic button that Ted Cruz is going to lose.
Right.
Colin Allred, he's leading in this poll. Colin Allred is only down 1, and he
got his butt handed to him
9.
by 10 points. 10 points.
Exactly.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right.
That's a massive landslide. Bested only by Trump's landslide.
We don't even need to have a convention, a Republican state party convention here in Texas, because we have had chairmen of the state party tell us that the platform that 8,000 delegates debate and argue over and vote for doesn't matter.
Because
Texas is a little R Republican form of government, but it's a plutocracy.
Yeah.
Right? It's he who writes the checks that writes the rules. Remember, here in Texas, we don't have campaign contribution limitations. So if somebody wants to write $1 million check to a campaign, and some have done that,
sure,
they can do that. And what are you going to do? I received a fundraising letter from one of the good guys in the Senate, Senator Bob Hall. And he won re-election easily, right? He is one of the good guys. I've known him for a very, very long time. True patriot, true conservative, liberty-driven, one of the smartest guys up there in the Senate. And he's sending out a fundraising letter. Well, why? Because during the session, legislators are prohibited from fundraising. They can't do that. They can't raise any money during the session. Why? Because back in the old days, the plutocrats would literally go onto the floor of the Texas House or the Texas Senate, and when a legislator would vote the right way, they'd give them a check right there on the floor. Now, as soon as the session is over, that's why they don't ever want any special sessions. They don't want to prolong the regular session any longer than what they can, because I call it the March of the Rhino Penguins. Yeah. They all go down to the Statesman's Club at the end of the session, and they go from conference room to conference room to conference room, and all the PACs and lobbyists hand them their attaboy, attagirl checks as soon as the session is over. It's a plutocracy. So you have this
let me pause you there for a second and just help people at home get this. Why are we going into the weeds on this sort of thing? Because the details, I don't want to just say the details also matter. The details are everything. You can't look at the tip of an iceberg and go, oh, look at that iceberg there or something, and somehow just not pay attention to the fact that however big that tip may be, 100 times that tip is underneath the waterline. Shakespeare said it best, God is in the details. Of course, that's been mangled in literary prose and common street parlance and everything to say the devil's in the details. But Shakespeare wrote, God is in the details. And you have to understand the details. And this is where people's eyes begin to glaze over and go, why do I care? Blah, blah, blah. Well, you care because it's the details that set the stage, that grease the skids for things to happen down the road. You can't get all upset, when the other team has thrown a touchdown pass. You're like, how did that defensive back slip there? The quarterback should never have the opportunity to get the pass off. There's your problem. So that's why we're going into this, because there is an awful lot of, and I'm sure, Clay, you've been in this fight here in Texas, Clay, for certainly longer than I have. I've been here a year. You've been here your whole life, but still, even in the whole political conservative movement, there is this sense, I suppose you could say, among people who identify as conservatives, now patriots, that, I got to come out for this fight and, get involved the last week or so before the election. And I got to go vote for whoever, the Republican candidate is. And, we won. Yay. Now I'm going to go home for 4 years. Doesn't work like that. It looks like it works like that because people who vote that way have lives. They're not interested in ruling the world. The other side is. And if you don't meet the other side with wanting to rule the world with an equal force, they're going to claw you back and keep getting you a little bit more and a little bit more. I mean, this is, look, Donald Trump didn't put out a tweet for nothing. I don't know if you call them tweets or X's now, but whatever it is, he didn't put that out. And it rose to the level of, national prominence now because he had what's happening here in Texas. And of course, that's also happening all over the country in red states. There's the rhino infection. Democrats recognized it in their caucus, and they got rid of all of them. They were called Blue Dog Democrats, pro-life Democrats. You won't find them anymore. Bob Casey Sr. Was probably the last prominent one of them, and Bill Clinton would not let him speak because he was a pro-life Democrat. He would not let him speak at the 1992 Democratic Convention, would not let him on the stage because he was pro-life. They've been purging for 20 years, and they're all done. They got them all done. The only thing now is just controlling the AOCs and, Tlaib Rashid and all those people that are very small number but have big mouths. On the Republican side, they ain't done nothing to do this. And this kind of selling out of patriotism and all of that. Yeah, we see it going on in D.C. right now with, the nominees of Trump for, cabinet members and government appointees and all that stuff. But what people have to understand is happening on the state, they do have some more control because it's more local. I'll hand the baton back to you, Claver. Get us in the weeds again.
Well, the importance of the details and getting into the weeds is the explanation of what I call mass insubordination. The importance of the details is all the wrangling that goes on, the machinations that go on to defy the will of the people.
Yep.
I put an emphasis on the platform because that is the grassroots. In order for you to become a delegate at the Texas State Convention, which is the largest political convention in the world, you have to start by first going to your precinct meeting the night of the election and being elected a delegate to the state convention or to the county convention and then to the state convention. And it's on your own dime.
Right.
And they create a platform which is supposed to be the marching orders of the governing party, which is the Republican Party here in Texas. And session after session, they refuse to do the will of the people. What I'm explaining when I'm going into details like this, getting down in the weeds, drilling down in the weeds, is how the will of the people is being subverted. Yes. Mass insubordination. That's why the details truly matter. Why do we have property taxes in Texas when platform after platform calls for the elimination, the repeal of property taxes in Texas? And every session they come back with, we gave you a property tax cut. That's not what we asked for. That's not what we ordered you to do.
Yeah, we ordered you to eliminate it.
To eliminate property taxes so that we may have private property in the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. Until that happens, we do not. Now, let's talk about the old guard. You talk about the purge. There was you mentioned a follow-on tweet under Don Jr.'s tweet that names the RINOs. Well, listen.
Yeah, let's hold a second for the audience. We've got that. We can bring that up right now and take a look at these. They're
Yeah, if you got a graph.
I haven't
on it,
been in
throw it up.
Texas long enough to know all of these names, but I do know quite a few of them just from listening to people. I got to say the people that are on the X account here putting these comments in, and particularly these are people who know their stuff. I don't want to show the entire tweet. What you're looking at is enough here, but after this and further comments, there were, hey, you forgot, Joe Smith and, Sam whoever and Harry whatever. So, when you start to add these names up and you're talking about 95-ish, seats, size of the conference, and all of a sudden you start subtracting, 30, 35 representatives from it who are now squishy, who may vote over him, all of a sudden that makes people go, wait. So, Texas has this reputation. That's the point of this whole broadcast today. Texas has a reputation of being, we're the gorilla red, Lone Star, rah, rah. But the people representing the people who do have that mindset are not like that. These guys got cowboy hats on. These guys have, fedoras on or something, whatever's going on. I don't know. Bad analogy, but it ain't cowboy hats, strolling around the floor of the Texas State Legislature.
Yeah, with your mandatory cowboy boots that you have to wear, with your 38 or your 32 tucked in the neck of the boot. I would like to highlight a couple of these names.
Yeah, please go ahead. You know these folks. Go ahead and say stuff.
I know every one of them. A lot have been around for a long, long time. Some of these guys, I knew them when they ran initially. One of them I ran against. First one I want to talk about is Charlie Guerin. Everything is in that list that you have off of Twitter. It's in alphabetical order. Charlie Guerin was one of the original Strauss 11. He's still there from Fort Worth. That guy is still there. He is absolutely an enemy of liberty. Cole Hefner, or Cody Harris is a surprise. Cole Hefner and Lacey Hull back to back. Lacey Hull was my opponent in the 2020 primary here in District 138. She won with the backing of the plutocrats, Texans for Lawsuit Reform, one of the dirtiest PACs, one of the most powerful PACs in the state of Texas. Just so happened that during that campaign, she was having an affair with the guy listed above her, Cole Hefner, the father of 7 out of East Texas. She was also having an affair with her political consultant, and she was married with heavy evidence that she may have slept with 3 guys in one day. And
hold on 1 second. Those are in reports other than you, right?
That is correct.
All right. So those are, would you say those are widespread media reports?
Very widespread media reports, very well known within the conservative movement, hidden by regime media here in Texas.
But there are many reports, media reports, like about a newspaper, and you can read about that.
Yeah. I had someone send me anonymously and then reveal who they were later. But they first sent it to me anonymously, a complete dossier of our escapades. And her husband filed divorce from her on election day. So that's the kind of things that go on up there in Austin for 140 days every other year. Yeah, these are the same characters. These guys, if you look at their Texas scorecard, legislative scorecards, how conservative they are, these are the ones that are going to be down in the 60s and the 70s. Nobody here is going to be a champion of liberty on this list. Some of these have flipped because when you flip and you go to the plutocratic side, you get the money. And odds are he or she who has the most campaign finance, the biggest campaign treasury war chest, is going to win, which happened in my election. So
let me ask you, if behind these guys, again, personal gain, like I said before we got to the introduction of you specifically, the Democrats are in it because they support a communist, Marxist, globalist agenda. I mean, they're not going to say no if somebody's handing them money, after the session, but that's not the point. They're driven by their ideology. These guys are driven by what they can get as personal gain. If it happens to be greasing the skids for that ideology here and there, oh, well, they don't care. They like a check. So, as usual, follow the money back. Why would the money in Texas be, go to people who are not friends of liberty, sons of liberty, who aren't particularly dedicated to patriotism? Why would the rich class be, because these guys are jumping through the hoops because they get a check. So why would somebody be giving them a check to jump through these hoops?
To get what they want.
Which is?
Let me point out one donor. His name is Charles Butt, B-U-T-T, Charles Butt.
We'll skip all the obvious jokes. Go ahead.
Yeah. He is one. Well, guess
he is a butt. That's true. He is a butt.
Guess what company is his family's? And I'm sure you've been in Texas long enough to know the word HEB.
No, Claver. Please don't say HEB. This is my grocery store. I love going there. No,
it breaks your heart, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Because they have these great commercials. They're funny, and the sports athletes and everything.
Oh, the stores are rocking good. Marketing. I mean, they're great. It's fantastic. Yeah. Every single thing that I eat, buy, drink, whatever is inside those four walls. Dang it.
Anti-Second Amendment.
Why?
Pro-death culture.
Why?
Joe Strauss was pro-death. Do you know that Joe Strauss's wife sat on the board of Planned Parenthood, and after his first term, Planned Parenthood actually thanked him for forwarding their agenda as a Republican?
I think it's something that people might be also a little bit concerned about, or like eye-popping, is that Barbara Bush, Mr. Constitutional Amendment, abortion, blah, 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 President Bush, Barbara Bush was one of two women who got Planned Parenthood to come into Texas. I know it came out much later on that, she was, pro-abortion, pro-child killing and stuff, but that's only because she said it. And, I think, I can't remember if Bush was already out of office or it was near the end of his term or just after his term, but that all came out that, we're not supposed to, Barbara Bush is pro-abortion. She remained quiet for the most part during his political career, but behind the scenes, she's coordinating with Planned Parenthood to get them here in Texas and the whole bit. I mean, this is, what the hell is wrong with these filthy rich people who will go and support causes that crush little people? Just, be in favor of guns, have people come to your store, buy your bloody lettuce and, your beautiful meats at the meat department or something, and get on with your life and get out everybody else's crap. What the hell is wrong with them?
Charles Butt, HEB is anti-school choice. He's pro-open borders. He sent 18-wheelers down to the border, the last border invasion during, was it Trump's administration or Obama's? I can't remember. A welcome committee of 18-wheelers to feed them.
Why?
I mean, because the cheap labor, you got a lot of house builders. And that's what makes up most of Texas lawsuit reform, are construction, home builders, developers, real estate developers, and the like. Anti-liability lawsuit types of things, eminent domain, pro-eminent domain, and stuff like that. I mean, it's a hodgepodge of anti-liberty policies that they like.
Okay, because in the end, they think whether they do or not, they think they make money from it. They probably do.
Now they don't go too stupid left. Somebody like a Charles Butt or David Weekley of Weekly Homes doesn't go.
They're not AOC.
Right. They're not stupid left. Okay. Right. They'll do just enough conservative stuff and message it just right.
Yeah.
To maintain their power and Republican control of the pink dome. Just enough. And what you'll get at the end of 140 days, you'll get a mass letter paid by the state government from every individual state representative and every individual senator saying this was the most conservative session we've had in the history of the Lone Star State.
Each session.
After every session.
You know what that sounds like to me? 2020. This was the most secure election in U.S. history.
Don't get me started on election fraud in Texas.
Well, we might head down there. So is the okay? So you got these guys who have a financial stake in it, which of course goes right back to the actual lawmakers who get a this is a financial stake. Is it really a case, because we've made this observation plenty of times, that the folks who are the money behind kind of the RINO movement, like the people who are the shapers and influences behind the actual Marxist communist agenda, those people are sort of so high up on the scale that they don't ever really suffer or feel the consequences of their actions. Everybody below them does, on that great big socioeconomic scale. They're way up here, but when they do this and they do that, it begins to eat its way up and consuming people at the bottom of it as it moves up into the, from the lower class to the lower middle class to the middle class, which was what caused the revolt in this election that helped Trump win. But is it just that sort of simple? They don't really care how other people are doing it as long as they're making money, however other people are being affected by it. I bet these guys have armed guards and walls around their places.
Let me address your curiosity this way, GMV. How much money do you think a Texas legislator, including the so-called lieutenant governor, how much money do you think they make a month or a year?
For that job?
That job.
They meet every other session. They get elected for 2 years, right?
Senators 4, reps 2.
Okay, so rep, I don't know, 100,000.
State representatives, senators, and the lieutenant governor of Texas make $600 a month.
Really? Which, of course, begs the question, how are they making a living?
Now, why do they take the money? Because of the pension plan. The pension plan. See, so first of all, if you do 2 terms, it really depends on your age. But basically, if you do 2 terms in the Senate and you do 4 terms in the House, you're going to start off with over $20,000 a year pension. Now, they tie the pension that they receive to the salaries of the state district judges. So every time they vote for a raise on the state district judges, they increase the ceiling of the pension that they receive at the end of their time of service under the pink dome. Let me give you an example.
Well, this is a convoluted way around the barn, but you still get to the same point.
Right. So the current mayor of Houston is John Whitmire. He makes more money than the governor of Texas. All right. But John Whitmire was in the Texas Senate for over 50 years, as is Senfronia Thompson in the House of Representatives that's been there for half a century.
Right.
You know what their pension is now per year?
Oh, well,
$160,000.
Not so bad. Nice career.
Now, you take Whitmire's pension and you stick it with his salary as mayor, that's over $300,000 a year.
Sure.
That's why they take the money. Plus they get, you get paid $600 a month, but your expense account, the expenses you get from the state of Texas for holding the office is always over 7 figures.
Sure. Of course it is.
Right? Then you have the lobbyist organization. Nobody up there who plays the game has to buy breakfast, lunch, or dinner because the lobbyists are allowed to buy your lunch, dinner on the opening day of session. It would be phenomenal, Gary, if we could go to opening day of session and go around to a lot of state representative offices. And what you'll find is that lobbyists, like say AT&T, one of the biggest PACs in the state,
sure,
or the pharmacist or something, and they go around to the offices and just drop off gifts. Just everyone, gifts, baskets. You'll go to
refrigerators, Lamborghinis,
just anything, cowboy boots, hats.
Are they allowed to accept those things?
Yes.
If they're doing it in public, I presume they are. Are they?
Yes.
Is there a limit
Football
on
tickets,
it?
University of Texas football tickets, Texas A&M football tickets. When Strauss was in office, because he owns a racetrack, he'd give out tickets to the Kentucky Derby. I mean, whatever. And they had to stuff them underneath the staff in the offices had to find somewhere to stuff all this stuff. You go up to a receptionist in somebody's office and you look down and you think it's M&Ms. It's not M&Ms on the candy. It's AT&T printed on the candy in the candy bowl. That's what's going on up there. That's why they take the money. They want to keep their jobs and they want that pension.
Yeah. So there's every incentive beyond just sort of what you would normally think. I mean, in this case, it's classified that your payout isn't the money you're making. The payout is the money you're getting at the end.
At the end,
Got
right?
it.
So they stay as long as possible.
Sure.
And that's why they take the money from the lobbyists, from the RINOs, from the plutocrats, from the Charles Butts, and the David Weekleys. Why do they do it? Because he or she who has the largest war chest has the greatest chance of winning. That's why someone like a Charlie Gehringer or a Whitmire or a Sinfronia Thompson can stay there forever and ever. Amen.
All right. Claver, give me a second here because we're talking about money. I have to talk about money for just a second. If you find this kind of information, discussion, analysis helpful, please consider a donation to us here at Souls and Liberty. You can just click on that little provided link you see right there. Thank you in advance for your generosity and support. Take a step away for just a moment. We're right back. And I'm going to ask Claver, okay, so how do you break this iron grip by the plutocracy? Be right back.
Because of your overwhelming support, our $14.88 MyPillow has been one of the biggest sales in MyPillow history. I couldn't think of a better way to say thank you than to extend our wholesale pricing through Christmas. Get a classic standard MyPillow for only $14.88. Upgrade to a queen size, just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for only $29.88. And ready? Multi-use MyPillows, only $9.88. It's perfect time to stock up for Christmas gifts for everyone on your list. Go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of our wholesale pricing. Including my classic standard MyPillows, only $14.88. But that's not all. I'm so confident you're going to love our classic MyPillows that I'm going to extend my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2025. Plus, orders over $75 ship absolutely free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Claver, question I just left before the break. How do you break this? I mean, there was some success in breaking it. I remember being in some various people's offices around when we were here, I don't know, probably 4 years ago, and those little rhino heads were on the wall. People had gone rhino hunting. They unseated some of them. Has that effort stopped? I mean, the Texas state legislature, passed the probably most significant, or certainly well up there, significant bill, pro-life bill, the other side calls the 6-week abortion ban. It got upheld by its Supreme Court review. How did that emerge from the Texas state legislature?
By force. Now, what happened?
By force, yeah.
Remember, the largest abortion clinic in Western civilization, or maybe in the world outside of China, is right here in Houston.
Right.
Right on 45, the old Sterling Bank building.
Right.
Shaped like a cash register for
various reasons.
Yeah, various reasons.
Obvious reasons. Yeah.
How do we break it? We have to get the electorate more information.
Sure.
I've seen campaigns where, Biden's hiding campaign in 2020. I've seen that in state rep and state senate races for years here in Texas, where the candidate will just go into the basement and use TV ads and newspaper, yes, even newspaper ads and billboards, and rely on that because the challenger, the liberty-driven challenger, doesn't have the money to match.
Right, sure.
So they don't show up to debates. They don't show up to town halls. They don't have to knock on doors. They just send out mailers and billboards and TV commercials and radio commercials. Yep. And name ID gets them over the hump, with the people not knowing how filthy they really are.
Sure.
That's why that's why I don't count on Fox News or Newsmax. They don't know what's going on in Texas.
Right.
The
Yeah.
defense of liberty begins in your own backyard.
Sure.
I say it again. The defense of liberty begins in your own backyard. And we don't have the type of media outlets here in the state of Texas or any other states for that matter that focus on the backyard so that the grassroots really knows what's going on. When we go into a campaign, and I have run for office, and I have been a consultant in campaigns, and I have been a statewide campaign manager, we will go into precincts, into territories, and give them this information, and they look at us like we got three heads. Where are you getting this from?
Right.
They never hear this.
Right.
And we need more media to focus on what's happening in the backyard. A lot of my contacts, a lot of my sources, they focus on the local issues like bond elections, how much debt that Texas is in right now because of bond elections, primarily driven by independent school districts that want campuses that look like Stanford and stadiums that look like the big
Mercedes-Benz or something. Yeah.
Right. So
don't say big house. Don't say that.
Oh, sorry about that. Didn't mean to
say. You can say Notre Dame Stadium, but don't say big house.
I know Horseshoe is banned. Big House is banned. Yeah, sorry about that. Rose Bowl is banned.
Rose Bowl's okay. I mean, we've played in the Rose Bowl once and we won, beat Stanford. That's okay. Don't say big house. Notre Dame fans refer to the big house as the big outhouse.
My apologies. I didn't want to touch a nerve there. That was unintended.
It's all right. It's all right. You're 1,000 miles separated from the whole Ann Arbor thing. So, you get a mulligan. There it is.
That's the truth. That really is the truth. By my calculations, if we could get a third of the House, Texas House, into the hands of Texas first type of candidates like Andy Hopper, who's backing David Cook, the speaker, that I trust implicitly. I know Andy from the North Texas, Wichita Falls area. Great guy.
Where I went to grade school.
Texas first pledge signer. Good friends, the Texas nationalist movement. Great guy. And if he puts out information, I believe what he says. And he laid down, just like Donald Trump Jr. said, these guys fled the conference and probably going to try to make a deal to get their speaker. The Speaker of the House has a lot of power. The Speaker of the Texas House has his own committee, his own assassination squad called the Calendars Committee. Okay, so he can kill anything he wants by making those appointments. His closest allies are going to be on that Calendars Committee.
Sure.
And so any legislation that's liberty driven that the plutocrats don't like, he can just kill it. Mm-hmm. He can just give the order to the Calendars Committee that though they meet behind closed doors. There's no open hearings. There's no recorded votes on the Calendars Committee. That's what goes on here. So they can kill, insurance bills, pro-life bills. They can kill whatever they want. Property tax bills, Second Amendment bills, border security bills. If it doesn't fit the desire of the plutocrats,
it's gone.
Like a David Week.
It never even makes it.
It never makes it to the floor.
Sure. All right, so let me ask you this, Claver. There was all this big, brouhaha. Was that last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember exactly. I was looking at it from Michigan. I couldn't follow it very intensely. But the speaker at the time was Doug Phelan. That's how you say his name, Phelan.
Dave Phelan, right.
Not really feeling very well. This was a big overthrow of him. Or some big coup against him, but what was that all about? I mean, I don't give the impression to people that, or have them walk away with the impression that good, solid, patriotic Republicans and patriots are just laying down, being walked over like doormats, although that's certainly one of the dynamics. It's not the only dynamic. What was the whole thing with the Speaker of the House about, whenever that was, like a year or two ago?
He ticked off both sides. Plain and simple. He ticked off the plutocrats. He didn't want to follow the plutocrat agenda, or several issues that the plutocrats wanted pushed through that he was kind of lazy about. And then there's always the opposition from the liberty driven. So he kind of ticked off both sides.
Wow, that's kind of political suicide.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what, and he barely won re-election in the Golden Triangle.
Well, I mean,
and he couldn't bring in,
he's not speaker
kind of money.
He's not speaker anymore, though. Right? I mean, I know there's a speaker's race going on, but he's not in the consideration.
No. And he couldn't bring in the kind of money. That's the kind of, that's one of the things that Strauss could do, Bonham can do. They can fund those who vote for them.
Sure.
We used to have a thing here called pledge cards. So before the session would end, the Speaker of the House would go around to members and make them sign a pledge card that the next session they were going to vote for them, reelect them as Speaker of the House. And so when the grassroots would go and confront the representatives about, we don't want this guy Speaker of the House, and so I gave a pledge. I gave my word.
I signed the pledge card. Here it is.
Nothing I can do about it, right? I mean, they finally got rid of those and some, but there's in some form or fashion, it still exists. It is about how much money you can raise. The Speaker has his own PAC, and he can spread that money around, sort of like the DCCC and stuff like that, right? He has his own money.
And just so I understand the money, and again, asking for the viewers here, when the money is being spread around, is it going into officially? Is it going into that representative's campaign coffers?
Yes, sir.
That's where it's going.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's a state thing, so it's regulated by state law. And
that's right.
State finance campaign election law, whatever it's called here in Texas. Is that money allowed to be paid out to individuals just because I like the color of your boots?
If they're on staff. Greg Abbott's campaign finance report is about 1,700 pages. It's a lot to go through.
Sure.
His campaign is a corporation. He has a portfolio. Sometimes when it's time to meet the payroll, he unloads some bonds. It's you can in a Texas campaign, you can hold investment instruments.
The campaign can.
The campaign can.
Wow.
Hold investment instruments.
No conflict of interest there.
Nope. Of course not. Okay. So remember, Greg Abbott, when he was Attorney General, 10 years without a primary opponent.
Right.
And so he was next in line automatically. He had the biggest war chest.
Sure.
You go in and you look at his campaign finance and how much money that guy has. Incredible. 40, 50, 60 million dollars.
Yeah, it's hard to run against that.
Yeah. Okay. And his own portfolio.
Right.
And you look at some of the what do they call it? You have to report your holdings, your financial holdings when you get in office, right? And you see the stocks that they have, and Dan Patrick holding Pfizer stock at the time of COVID and making over 100% on the investment on the stock appreciation.
That's all. Oh, he only made 100%. Wow.
Yeah, that kind of stuff goes on.
So are you saying that guys like Abbott and Patrick, for example, that they're not really good?
They're not.
Isn't this just sort of the way the game is played in Texas?
Yes. You see, constitutionally, the strongest constitutional office in the state of Texas is supposed to be the lieutenant governor, not the governor. The Texas governor is supposed to be absolutely weak to check the executive power.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Right? So you can have a Republican, they don't run together as a team. They're not a ticket.
Right.
They run individually.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So you could have a Republican governor and a Democrat lieutenant governor. It's happened before.
Sure.
Okay. But that's supposed to be a check on executive power. That's why I don't like addressing Dan Patrick as lieutenant governor. I address him as vice governor.
Or co-governor.
Because he really acquiesces his constitutional power to Abbott. Abbott, his power constitutionally really comes outside of session when executive orders are in order.
Right.
Okay. So Patrick he's supposed to be the check on power. So when when Abbott shut down Texas, the lie that we didn't close Texas, that was such a lie. Yeah. They closed down Texas just like everybody else got closed down, just like blue states got closed down
during COVID, right? Yep.
Through COVID, right? And I know friends who lost businesses, nearly lost businesses, lost jobs, the whole nine.
Sure.
Okay. So when Abbott does something like that, Patrick has the constitutional power to check that, and he wouldn't do it.
Right.
So Abbott was responsible for shutting down the Texas economy and schools. And Patrick was just equally responsible.
He just went along with it.
He just went along with it. All the border stuff, Patrick just goes along with it. Budget stuff, Patrick just goes along with it.
So how is it that we've got, I got a little 10-minute warning here. I know there's tons to cover, but I mean, this is interesting for people, I think outside of Texas, because you got to, if you're watching this in Tennessee, for example, or you're watching this in Wyoming. Wyoming's the most Republican state, voted for Trump 74%, I think it was, 72, 74%, something like that. So if you're sitting there and you're watching this, you're going, is this kind of stuff happening in my state legislature? Well, given the fact that we all have fallen human nature, I bet, yeah. the way it might be happening, or whatever the state laws are and the this and that's everything, you got to investigate that in your own state. But that's the point. You got to investigate this in your own state. For example, if you move over to Arizona and you look at the really 100,000 people in Arizona who voted for Trump also voted for Gallego to be the Democratic senator. 100,000 people went into the voting booth and voted Trump, Gallego. 100,000, because that's the difference. That was the difference between the margins in the races and, Trump and Harris and Gallego and, Kerry Lake. And when you look all that stuff and do the analysis, that's what it is. So on the state level there, because they run their own state elections, what about the elections board there? What about all the cheating? What about how are the ballots counted? What about all the machines shutting down? Who oversees that? This is all about power by a few who are the ones behind the scenes in every state, who are blue states as well, who are, pulling the strings, manipulating things. They've got people by the short hairs. I mean, all this stuff is going on. And you got to be involved in this sort of thing. That's the whole point of this message of this show. Yes, we're focusing on Texas because you are the wonder kid of you're the Wikipedia. I'm starting calling you Wikipedia instead of Klaber. Hey, Wiki. You want to grab lunch? But all of this stuff, I'm guessing you probably do this in your sleep. But that's why we're doing this. So people understand that, Ronald Reagan said it, you've got to defend freedom in every generation, because there's always some evil, bad people, rotten stuff going on behind the scenes. And in this case, in the state of Texas, like many other states, it's infected the Republican Party. And these RINOs they got to go. Tell me about the impeachment against Ken Paxton. What was behind all of that? Because everybody who's watching probably has at least heard about that.
That goes back a long, long, long way. That goes back to that 2011 race for Speaker of the House when Ken Paxton actually tried to challenge Strauss and then chickened out on the first day of the opening session and withdrew his name. There's so much. What was the official?
Let's just dance across the official stuff first. There was a vote to impeach him. Why? What was the official reason?
There's been suspicion around Ken Paxton and his dealings, his business dealings, the murkiness of his business dealings, and his representation in the Pink Dome before he was AG.
Okay.
There's been these accusations of money under the table, perhaps extramarital affair. But that whole thing was just like the Trump persecutions, the Trump impeachment. That was all political. That's factions of the plutocracy fighting against each other.
Right.
That's what that's all about.
Okay.
Corruption in his office, alleged corruption in his office, but as you see, acquitted in the trial in the whole 9 yards and still in office.
Sure.
That goes back decades that these factions have been fighting against each other for decades. There's factions within each region of the state and portions of each city.
Is this,
and they battle.
Has it gotten to the point where it's kind of like a Hatfield and McCoy's, like there might be some agendas and things, but it's also pretty darn personal?
It's very personal.
Yep.
It's dollar against dollar, or $1 million against millions of dollars.
Right.
And it's not just Hatfields and McCoys. It's Hatfields, McCoys, McDonald's,
Gotcha.
Smiths, Taylors. You know, one of the keys when you say the solution, something I've been trying to figure out for a long time, and unfortunately I have not been able to solve the Rubik's Cube. Who are the linchpins between each one of the factions?
Yeah.
Because there's those that go between each one of the factions. And I want to underscore something you just finished saying, GMV, and that is, hey, you need to turn Fox News off sometimes, turn Newsmax off sometimes, and try to find out what's happening in your state, because
bingo.
The audience and the consumer that they're appealing to is the national and international audience. So that's what they focus on. They're going to focus on what's going on in Syria and Gaza.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's sexier. It's much sexier to hear about, Congress or the Senate is coming down to a vote on, Trump's latest Supreme Court nominee. And that stuff it's much more sexy than, hey, how much funding is going from the county thing to this school board today. I mean, when I was a reporter, we used to hate getting assigned to cover the school board meetings. We wanted to go cover what was happening in the Capitol, or, what was happening in some police, investigation into a serial killer. I mean, that was the much more sexy stuff. You could really sit in a school board meeting and listen to people who don't really sound that intelligent trying to express and articulate themselves, that it was just like, oh God, this is boring. And then they wanted a live shot from you at 11 o'clock. Like, oh, over what? The school board today yawned its way through and voted appropriations for 16 more number 2 pencils, but there was a fight about whether it should be lead or not. I mean, that's kind of what it was reporting. It's not sexy, is my point. It's not sexy. It's not headline grabbing. It's none of that. But it's the beginnings of where things start to happen. And if you can get it at the beginning, you can do a lot of steering with it.
The major debt in Texas, approaching now $400 billion. The major driver is school district bond issues.
Yep.
And transportation, infrastructure. Once again, the defense of liberty begins in your own backyard.
Bingo.
And I'm going to be lobbying you super duper heavy for us to continue to have these types of conversations.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm going to be lobbying heavy. I really wish we could get a correspondent up there to Austin, but it will follow from afar.
Sure. Because
whatever happens in Texas, it's going to have an impact. If you don't think knowing what goes on in your local or state government is important, remember how many people died during the freeze here in Texas because the power grid failed.
Right.
There was a reason for that.
Sure.
People have been trying to update the power grid here in Texas for years, trying to harden power grid against those types of disasters.
Sure.
And against EMP attack, especially Bob Hall, the state senator that I mentioned before, one of the good guys.
Yep.
Okay. Former electrical engineer, formerly from NORAD, trying to protect our grid, harden our grid. One of the bureaucracies in Texas, the agencies, the commissions that control that stuff. That's one of the powers of the governor. Doesn't have a lot of constitutional power outside of making appointments to the deep state of Texas.
Right.
Okay. So these are the type of things that we should be speaking about and informing our consumers about, so that wherever they are in the nation or on the planet, because we have an international audience too, naturally being on the net, look at what's going on in your own backyard, what your mayors are doing, what your county executives are doing, what your neighboring states are doing, because it can have an impact.
Sure.
Energy prices, grocery prices, individual state inflation. When you talk about the economy, you can't talk about the economy overall. There's several different aspects of the economy. There's regional, there's state. The Texas economy may be great, and Mississippi is struggling. Georgia's doing great, but Oregon is about to go bankrupt, or California is.
Sure.
Okay, so those are the type of things I really wish I could sort of steer Souls and Liberty to focus on a little bit more, because it truly has an impact on our individual lives.
It really does. And I want to add in, Claver, if I can here, that one of the things I think is important for people to understand, particularly with Texas, and even if you're not in Texas, so you want to be looking at things and use it as an example, again, in your own backyard if you're not in this state. You know, it used to be that the joke was, at least culturally and to a degree politically, you know, something would happen in California, and then those westerly winds would blow it across the rest of the country, and it would happen eventually in the rest of the country too. Not so much the case now with the red state, blue state thing. You know, that, as a matter of fact, it's pushback on the red part state, at least the population, against things that happen there. However, Texas is kind of like the red version of what California was. It's the biggest red state there is, population, certainly land mass. Just try driving around it. So what happens here has the very real possibility beginning to affect what happens in other states. It was the Texas abortion ban law, for example, that picked up and energized other red states with their own pro-life legislation and laws. So it is important. It's important for your state, but if you're in a certain state like Texas, for example, or Florida, which is dominant red state, take advantage of the opportunities you have as a free man to be involved in this stuff. I get it. People have lives and the whole bit and everything, but you simply cannot let this corrosive, corrupt influence move into and begin to turn red pink and then pink purple, and then it's lights out. So that's exactly what we want to be doing in the blue states, not the other way around. Claver, I got to wrap us up here. Give me 30 seconds, closing thought.
Closing thought is we can win this thing. The key is knowledge, information to the voter, that we do our jobs. We bone up on what's happening. We continue to harvest from our sources, our connections around the state and across the nation, across the globe. And we continue to do our job. That is informed. Yes, we want to be entertaining. We don't want to be boring. But the most important thing is, if you're not listening, if you're not watching, you're not learning.
That's correct.
We want to educate. We want to inform. We want to prepare for you to do political warfare at the ballot box.
Absolutely. Claver Wikipedia. Like that. Claver Wiki. Thanks very much, brother, for joining us. We shall return to these discussions at a probably not too distant future date, because it's always important. Thanks much, brother. Appreciate it.
Love you, man.
All right. God bless. All right. If you find this information, this type of information, valuable and all that and helpful, because it's an ongoing struggle, because don't want you falling into the trap of, we won November 5th, so everything's great. Yeah, I can go back to whatever, and then show up again in 2028. All that happened on November 5th is that the game changed, and that's good. And we should be thankful to God for that and give each other a pat on the back and high five it and everything. But that's not the game itself. That's the direction of the game. The game itself is far from over. So as we approach the end of the year here, we'd like to appeal to you for your help with any donation that you might make to support us in our ongoing work. We do this to help you, to provide what we call, kind of in the media world, one-stop shopping. So you can learn almost everything you need to, or at least enough of what you need to, and then take it to your own street, your own school board, your own state government, your county government, whatever it is, and know what's going on. So we say all this stuff for you here, and we expand on why it's important, because ultimately it's you. It's you. So Souls and Liberties, a Catholic ecumenical effort to join with others of goodwill who understand the threat to the Republic and that liberty needs defending every day. Why? Ultimately, for the protection of souls. It's not just a once every 4 years thing, as we said. So if you're able to make a donation to us, please just click on that provided link and allow us to thank you in advance. Coming to you from Houston, Texas. Yeehaw! This is Gary Michael Voris. God love you.